have fed his delusions of grandeur by suggesting that the Palestinian Authority is sufficiently prepared to assume the responsibilities of statehood. And according to Fayyad himself, these assurances from the IMF amount to the birth certificate of a Palestinian state. So what kind of a birth certificate is being drawn up for the state that Fayyad and Mahmoud Abbas want to have recognized at the United Nations later this month? Well, this birth certificate will say implicitly, if not explicitly, that Palestine must pursue economic policies that have been shown time and time again the world over to widen the gap between the rich and the poor. Institutions, Western-controlled institutions like the IMF, are determined to keep the Palestinian economy on a tight leash, just as they have done with many other economies throughout the world. Now, as Ali mentioned, at least I think he mentioned, the Netherlands is one of several European Union governments that has signalled it will oppose the vote on Palestinian statehood later this month. And this proves, once again, that Uri Rosenthal and Mark Rutte, your Prime Minister, will do almost anything that Israel requests them to do. But that does not mean that the Palestinian Authority's statehood initiative should be supported simply because some of the most reactionary right-wing politicians in Europe are opposed to it. The truth, my friends, is that even those European Union governments, like Spain, for example, which have indicated that they will support the Palestinian Statehood Initiative, Palestinian Authority Statehood Initiative, cannot be considered real friends of the Palestinian people. And I emphasize, my friends, that I mean the Palestinian people as a whole, not those collaborators in the Palestinian Authority. The reality is that all 27 states in the European Union and all of the EU's major institutions have increased their cooperation with Israel so considerably in recent years that all of them must be viewed as complicit in Israel's crimes against the Palestinian people. I'll cite one example of European Union-Israel cooperation with which I've become slightly obsessed lately. This cooperation is in the field of scientific research. Israel is the most active non-European participant in the European Union's multi-annual scientific research program. You may not read much about this scientific research program in your newspapers, if at all, but it's one of the main areas of European Union expenditure. Overall, the program has been allocated 53 billion euros between the years of 2007 and 2013. And overall, Israel is taking part in 800 coordinated actions under this scientific research program. Now, a few days ago, I checked the European Union's online information service on scientific research to see if there are many cases where Dutch universities or Dutch private firms are linked up with Israel in projects that are funded by us, by the European taxpayer. And the results of my search indicated that the number of such projects bringing together the Netherlands and Israel comes to more than 200. Just to give you a little flavour of these projects, I'd like to talk about one briefly called Maximus. Maximus is designed to make aeroplanes that are lighter and can be more quickly assembled than the ones you'll see landing today at Schiphol. Overall, this project has a budget of 70 million euros, and it brings together several Dutch partners, including the University of Eindhoven and the National Aerospace Laboratory here in Amsterdam, with Israel Aerospace Industries. Israel Aerospace Industries is one of two providers of the warplanes, specifically the pilotless drones or unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, as they're also known, that were used to kill civilians in Gaza in 2008 and 2009. Towards the end of this year, probably in December, the European Commission, the European Union's executive branch, is scheduled to publish a proposal on the future of the EU's scientific research policy. And from all the contacts discussions that I and others have had with EU officials, it appears that the European Commission is determined to keep on subsidising Israeli weapons manufacturers, and by extension, to keep on supporting Israel's war crimes. The European Union's decision to embrace the Israeli arms industry more tightly than before is partly the result of lobbying by international weapons manufacturers. These manufacturers have persuaded policymakers that it's necessary to allocate them more resources to ensure that Europe never has to deal with an 11th of September of its own. Well, my friends, I remain unconvinced that subsidising an industry that depends on war to make profits is the best way to make us and future generations safer. And even if it did make us safer, I, for one, do not want 1 cent of my tax euros to go to Israeli arms companies. This subsidising of Israel's war industry is the most grotesque aspect of the European Union's ever-deepening relationship with Israel. And for that reason, my friends, it must be stopped. Thank you very much.